So
that's it.
Let's get
for
started.
The intro. Let's get started.
We prepared a little bit of content for you guys as usual, like what Carsten and I have seen during the pandemic, during the last 2-3 years almost. We saw some paradigm shifts, so we see that the AI industry, machine learning, data, BI, it's all kind of converging and some stuff is really changing now, and we just digested also to give you a little bit of a teaser of what's coming up during the next 2 days about what we've learned. Number one is really going from prototypes, going from the lab to data and ML ops. Some of you might remember that the motto of the last data festival was playtime is over, and now I would say we can even exaggerate this term. It's really about creating value. And of course, if you start a project, if you try something new with data, with AI, you still work in this kind of lab style, right? So you still fail fast, you still try out what works and what doesn't. But in the end, if you want to create value, you just create value if the stuff runs, okay? So you just create value from running software, and that's actually what's happening. AI is really like building software at the moment, and it's really hard, right? I mean, most of you who build software already know that this is already a challenge. Making DevOps really happen. We see all of the large companies, like for example BMW, transforming to a 100% agile organization in their IT. But running software with data is even harder, right? Data ops, because data is changing and then data is missing or corrupt, or your pipelines don't work anymore. You have to find out why. And then if you go to ML ops, so machine learning operations, gets even harder because your algorithms don't work anymore, or the underlying assumptions, the behavior of your customers has changed, or I don't know, markets have changed, I don't know what the toilet paper industry, what their algorithms did, for example, when the pandemic hit, So it's really, really hard to have your machine learning models really running, but this is really where the value is created at the moment.
Absolutely. If you look through the agenda, there were actually multiple presentations because it's such a hot topic. You know what? It didn't slow down during the pandemic. It even accelerated.
Yes.
Because what we saw happening in the pandemic was that there was really now a new focus on getting things done. It's really, playtime was definitely over. Things got worse, and everyone got really serious in business and had to, and so did AI. Let's take a look at the second topic. This is the data architecture. And I'm sure you all follow this. There's basically a new term out every, 6 months or so. But what's really behind this? Behind this is a change in paradigm on the way of thinking. How do we physically store data? And there's a very, very strong paradigm that says, well, let's get it all to one place physically. Then we have it. Then we have everything can point to one place, and it gets easier, which is true in some cases, but not always. And that's, I think, something the mindset is shifting here. The paradigms are shifting, because we are thinking now much more about a data fabric. So what's that? That's basically the idea that we have to centralize the access to data, the metadata, the information where data is, also maybe the information about the data models that we have. But we should think about whether we actually need to physically integrate all data. So will data warehouses go away? No, obviously not. There's still a very good use cases where we need this homogenized, centralized, standardized data. Will data lakes go away? Obviously not. Great store for detailed, maybe big data, all this machine data, sensor data, all the stuff from the internet you collect, and so on. So we also need that, and some of that may be centralized. With a data lakehouse, is that a good idea? Obviously, yes. We need to combine this in whatever manner. But do we actually need to bring all data physically to one location? Probably not anymore, because if you think about it, often it's not even feasible anymore. It's too much data. The intervals in which it's being created might be too fast. It's simply just something to consider, to rethink whether it's actually a goal to bring it all to one place or be rather selective. What to centralize in what type of architecture, what type of technology also, and then rather think about the fabric as being able to access that and being able to understand where data is, but not necessarily transport it all to one place.
And if you're honest, I mean, I haven't seen any data lake project who totally achieved the targets, right? So I think this is just an evolutionary step that makes perfect sense. And sometimes you may not even put all the data in one place, right?
Absolutely.
Another point regarding AI is that we see, especially in Europe, right? I mean, we have this German or this European engineering mindset, and we really, really want to understand how things work, right? So when I was a kid, somebody gave me a book. It really, the name was Wie die Dinge funktionieren, how things work. And I loved this book, and I could just read for days as a child how actually, especially mechanical engineering, how gadget worked and how all this happened, right? And then I think this is deeply in our mindset, and this is sometimes also working with a lot of manufacturing people hard to accept, right? So that some AI models are quite black box, and so the trend is really to make this more explainable. And there's even, you all might have heard about this, an AI regulation from the EU coming up. So it's going to be really interesting, and I just can encourage all of you that this time be prepared, yeah? So don't do the same thing as when GDPR or DSGVO came up. This time you really have the chance to maybe even influence the regulation. Yeah, we try to help a little bit at the AI Association, KI Bundesverband. So I think it's really also up to us to help policymakers make meaningful decisions on how that works. And but it can definitely be expected. And I mean, I think what most of you will have then, especially in critical applications like, I don't know, autonomous driving or in healthcare or even in credit scoring or so, you might have to sacrifice a little bit of predictive power from, I don't know, some deep neural networks model to maybe a more explainable model in order to make it traceable, in order also to create the trust that you need to have people actually use it in the end, right? Because again, a running system is important, but a running system that nobody uses also does not create value.
And if you want to do that, there's one idea that's really powerful. That's the data democracy. And we do see this paradigm shift happening, that companies realize with all their digital initiatives, with all their ideas around data strategies, that there's one thing really missing to make it really work in the companies, and that's the right data culture. And how do I go to a good data culture? It's all about the mindsets of people. Yes, how to reach them, how to educate them, how to bring data to life and make it an everyday concern and fun, maybe even, to work with data. And that's the hardest part even. That's much harder than technology, where most of the companies already have a pretty good setup and it's evolving so fast. And it's really the topic of getting all the people in our organizations to actually embrace data. And that's what behind this idea is, that one topic really is we need to have access to data to make any of all the great ideas we see over the next 2 days work. And to get to this data, often there are big hurdles in companies. And that's what we need to tear down. We have to think about how to make data more accessible, and that's the data democracy. And get rid of those data kingdoms, often also called data silos, that really prohibit us from getting all the value out of the data. Obviously, we need to take concern about personal data, secret data. That's all, we don't touch that. But it's really about the mindset, about all the rest, the big rest that we have to put to use, create value out of it. And that's really much more about mindset. It's also a big topic about leadership, that the leaders also have to really promote this, make the right decisions, and see that this is going to happen.
So, I mean, when I started data science in Germany almost now 10 years ago, or even 15 years at BMW, there was this belief that data scientists were those unicorn people, right? Who remembers those Venn diagrams in the internet? Yeah, where they had like, I don't know, 4 different spirals, and basically if you wanted to be a data scientist, you needed to have like 5 different PhDs or so, right? And obviously those people were really, really hard to find if they were even existing actually. And And I think, I mean, if you come from research, the data scientist, I mean, obviously a scientist, there has been some great scientists in our past who made single breakthroughs that we still are having the results, that we're still very, very happy that happened. But if you look on the people who industrialized those science successes, it was not single people, it was mostly teams who really, really made those great people leverage their ideas, right? And this is what's really happening, also following the whole AI is becoming, or is already software engineering. In software engineering teams, you have all those different roles, right? And also we see that when we build AI software, we have machine learning engineers, data engineers, we have business analysts, we have business enablers, data strategists, and so forth. So the whole field has totally become more diverse, which is awesome, right? And also, it's not just that, it's also that it's not just the data people anymore. As we said before, in order to make it used, it's really, really important that you have the domain knowledge, that you bring all your business people in, that you integrate your IT department, who then needs to do the ML ops, data ops, dev ops. So it's really, really becoming more of a team job. And what's also really cool is, I think, is that there is a specialization in, let's say, in use cases. Yeah, so I also see the first, I don't know, predictive maintenance specialists or NLP, AI practitioners, whatever that is, yeah. Or we also see an industry specialization. So coming now after this 10 years in Europe, we already know a little bit what are the typical applications in healthcare, what are applications that work in insurance, what works in the manufacturing industry. And I think it's also really, really cool that we see a specialization in that. And I think ultimately where this is going to lead, also following this data democracy idea, is that in every department, yeah, I love what you said, Alex, we got rid of our IT at Zalando, yeah, doesn't mean that they fired the IT people, it means that they don't distinguish anymore between business and IT, right? Because business is IT and IT is business. Okay, they are a cool e-commerce shop, fair enough, yeah. But we also see this happening a lot, also in large organizations, Daimler, for example, where they are breaking up those, I don't know, data labs or data center of competences, but they get more and more, yeah, also like a fabric, like a mesh, into the organization and really, really working on the productive use cases together with their business colleagues.
All right.
And I love the picture.
The sixth and last paradigm shift we are seeing, and obviously we have to talk about data mesh. That's the hot shit everyone is talking about these days. So it's a shift in mindset, and it's again finding a new balance between centralization and decentralization. So I talked already about the data fabric. That's the technical concept, yeah, where we think about, okay, what to centralize, how much to standardize. Data mesh is an organizational concept, and it's independent from technology, by the way. Yeah, so it doesn't have to say anything how you actually realize it. Do you need a central data lake? Do you put your data out in the field to the business departments? There are many, many choices how to make a data mesh work, but it's an organizational concept. And what it's about, we saw the shift that many companies, for example, here in Munich, VW put their data lab in Munich, was one of the first big ones in Germany, and that was a good starting point for lots of companies. Centralize that, there's something new happening, we need to understand AI better, so let's do that outside of our processes, outside of our established systems to get something new going, get the new use cases flowing. But at some point, people or companies realized this has to get out into the field. Yeah? And we had this idea of centralizing analytics and data know-how, which makes sense at first, but we are lacking a little bit, maybe a little bit domain know-how, but often it was still possible to bring it in. But what we were really lacking was acceptance in the business departments, the actual integration into the processes, the operationalization that we also talked about in the ops topic, yeah, where we basically saw the new importance of bringing principles and processes, how to operationalize it. And that's what the data mesh actually is about. Yeah? So the idea here is now bring know-how, data know-how into the business departments, build the data products there, but then find the right balance between what needs to be centralized. Yeah, there's still some governance issues that you should care about centralizing. For example, yeah, GDPR. For example, security topics. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to centralize that and do it commonly across the enterprise. But then it's also important to get the word out. So if you have now the flexibility and the versatility in the business department to build your data products, you're still in a responsibility here. Yeah, you have to bring it to the whole company. It's not only for you what you build. So the data products need to be for everyone. So there needs to be some way, and this is what many companies right now are trying to figure out, some way of building data products that are actually usable for anyone in the organization. Yeah, and that could be through documented APIs. That could through like extending your data catalog to a data product catalog. There are many ways how to do that, but it's also important. Yeah? So not to create new data product silos in your business departments. We talked about the democratization idea. So data mesh means decentralizing data know-how to build data products in the business departments. At the same time, creating the mesh. Yeah? Making sure that data that needs to be harmonized is actually harmonized, making sure that data products that need to be used across the enterprise can be used across the enterprise, and some more things about it. But it's really a shift we see. Good starting point was the lab, was to centralize, but now it's really about getting it out into the field, getting it out into the business department, getting the buy-in, getting it really to work, because playtime is over. We need to create that value from AI, and this is one good idea how to do it. Looking forward to Alex Borek's keynote, the final finishing keynote of this event tomorrow afternoon. He will explain how Zalando established, implemented its data mesh approach. And today, if you want to know more about the data mesh, get more details on how it's actually being built up, what's behind the idea, I invite you to come to the track, from the BARC track on data mesh that's happening today on this stage. And with that, we are done with our short intro that gave you maybe a little bit of an overview what's happening over the 2 days, because you will see most of the presentations will touch on one of these topics, explain how companies are getting ahead with their data and AI initiatives.
Yeah, so thank you very much, guys. I think there might be more things that break during the day or so. Yeah, so be a bit patient. We all have to adjust again to I don't know, do this again in person. I'm super excited, and maybe one last word to you guys. I mean, we've seen those 10 years now of machine learning, AI, data in Europe, and BI and data warehousing, all that stuff even longer. And I'm very excited for the next 10 years.